Hey there, guys. It's Coach Tim once again, and I have a wonderful kind of break in the themes that we've been working on, where we've been talking about how to coach and ideas on better coaching and positive coaching. Today, I want to give you a positive coach, but I also want to tackle something that is very interesting to me based on my own experience. And I think a lot of kids come out of high school. They have a great career. Everybody tells them they're great for, their youth, if they played youth and all of their high school. And of course, they know they're worthy of playing at the upper levels because the newspapers have told them they're all-stars in the all-star game. And of course, mom and dad and all the aunts and uncles tell them they're great. And then the tail end of the season happens, as it did for me in my senior year, and I got all the accolades and very few actual interested suitors to help me achieve my dream, which was, I'll share it with you, it was to play at UCLA. That never happened. For one, they didn't have a business school, and I wanted a business school. And number two, I don't know that I would have got in. And number three, they weren't interested in me as a football player. I'm 6 foot, and back then I was probably 220 soaking wet as a defensive lineman. So, needless to say, I had to come up with a plan B, and I didn't have one. And everybody should have a plan B, and especially if you're a parent and know what to do. My parents were clueless. And the gentleman I'm about to introduce, Michael Dunlevy, is someone who is the plan B, or not. Maybe it's just plan A. But he can help you get to that place your kid wants to get to. Now, he's just not some typical guy that I've seen a lot of lately that thinks of there's a great idea and starts a business and really doesn't have any business experience or football experience. Let me tell you what Coach Dunlevy has done before coming to Next College Student Athlete out of Florida, which he's been part of their scouting for the last couple of years and their speaking. He spent the last 13 years from 2001 to 14 at Everett University and was the 2003 USA South Conference Coach of the Year, Division III National Championship Committee. And here's the one that I like. This is the one that got me all juiced up about Coach. I saw that his defense was number 8 in the nation in turnover. And I know that that's a big deal. That's a huge deal. And any coach that's been around for a while would agree with me. He coached NFL Europe for a couple years, Ohio State, defensive line, special teams, and his coaching career goes all the way back to 1989. And besides that, he's also a good guy. I mean, he's done a ton of community service, Habitat for Humanity, Boys and Girls Club, God's Pit Crew, elementary schools, youth detention homes, prison ministry. After listening to this coach, I think I suck. Anyway, welcome, Michael Dunlevy. Coach, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great, Tim. Thanks for having me.
That resume is humbling for me to read. That is very impressive, sir. So I have a question. How does one go from such incredible success as a head coach as well as an assistant over the years to get into the recruiting game as a company?
Well, I mean, in regards to my background, obviously, I coached 28 years at the collegiate level, and so recruiting is the bread and butter of your success, as a college football coach and, just as a coach in general at any collegiate level. The recruiting is the key aspect of your success and your program success. So obviously I had a lot of experience in regards to the recruiting process and dealing with student athletes, families, over the last 28 years. And I ended up at NCAA, which is, next college student athlete because I used them on the back end. I was a former coach that did utilize a lot of things that they had to offer to find student athletes, to narrow in on certain student athletes that we knew were going to be great fits for our program. And it's given me a great opportunity, to still help student athletes, in something I love to do, which is, helping them be successful in getting that degree, and then, being able to play a sport they love also. As I said, I did coach 28 years, got offered a job clear across the country in the state of Washington when I was after I'd been at Averett University for as a head coach, and just kind of made a decision for my family to, kind of spend a little bit more time with them, and this has given me that opportunity. And actually really enjoyed it the last 2 years. Was just out at the U.S. Army All-American Bowl, spoke out there, had several recruiting sessions out there for the families and the kids that were out there for the combine that was the day before the game, which we had about 650 student athletes out there. But that's kind of how, I got to where I'm at, and like I said, loving what I'm doing, and I'm basically the Southeast Director of Regional Recruiting for NCSA.
I got you. So what specifically, let's start at the beginning. What specifically does your company do?
Well, NCSA is actually the largest online network where we connect college coaches with student athletes. We had over 12 million connections last year between college coaches and student athletes. Pretty much, Tim, the direction that recruiting has gone now is 95% of student athletes are discovered online first now. So having an online presence where coaches can pretty much see everything about you, but more importantly, Tim, is to be able to be searchable by criteria now. It's great that you send me film or those type of things as a college coach, but good chances are I'm not looking at it unless you meet the requirements I'm looking for. And some other things I'll get a little bit deeper in, maybe we can get deeper into, but, how you set yourself up for success. But that's basically what NCSA is connecting those, and more importantly, connecting those student athletes with the best fit academically and athletically, not just about their sport. We know the importance of getting that degree, and we want to make sure that student athlete's targeting the right schools, to make sure they're still getting that degree, and the other things that they're looking for, region of the country and that type of stuff, to be successful in getting the best opportunities out there for yourself.
So that sounds like a heck of a proposition. What kind of opportunities are there for the various kinds of student athletes that you come across?
Well, and we do 29 sports. Football is the largest part of our network. It's really where this network started in 2000, 16 years ago, or I guess it's 17 years ago now. Being able to put that student athlete in a position where we're educating them on what they should do, how they should do it, when they should do it, because recruiting has changed immensely over the last 4 or 5 years, and you've got to get your name out there early. You've got to make sure you're starting to be proactive as a student athlete now. It's no longer, who your coach knew or whatever coaches come through your high school. You have the opportunity as a student athlete now to have so much more control over the recruiting process and who you're trying to get yourself out in front of.
How is that? Back when we were kids, you somehow magically got letters in the mail, and that indicated if somebody was interested in you. How's it? What's changed? I know the internet's changed, but how do I have more power, and how can I get myself known if I'm a kid wanting to get out there?
Right. Well, like I said, the online presence is huge. Making sure that student athlete basically has everything in one place. Look at it as an online resume to get out in front of college coaches. Everything that adds value to that student athlete, they want to get together. Tim, one of the biggest mistakes that student athletes make, have made in the last 4 or 5 years, and I used to see it a ton, is I would get inundated with YouTube links, huddle highlight links, and these kids would not send grades with it. If you didn't send other information like your transcript with those films, 90% of these coaches are not even looking at the film. They don't have that kind of time. So being able to have access, or giving access to those coaches, all that information just puts the student athlete in a much better position to be targeted and definitely to be, searched by those schools. But that's where you talk about criteria. The old way was I had to get to a game. I had to see your high school coach to find out who you were. Now I can get on the internet as a college coach. I can search I can search by criteria. So if I'm looking for a defensive end that I want to be 6'2" or taller, that has a 3.0 GPA or higher, 1,000 on the SAT, I'm only going to start seeing the profiles of those student athletes that fit the criteria I'm looking for. So now that student athlete's going to be able to get exposure to schools that may never come through their high school. That's where you're seeing the biggest change is. I would say the last couple of years of my recruiting, I was getting student athletes out of schools that I'd never been in before. And you just never were able to do that. So basically, like I said, getting that information in front of these college coaches, but more importantly, you can be searchable by criteria. I'm sure a lot of your coaches all out there are familiar with Huddle. I cannot go into Huddle and say, hey, give me all the defensive ends that are 6'2" or taller in the state of California. It just doesn't work that way. It's just more of a film breakdown, that type of stuff. So those are really where you start getting the opportunity as a student athlete. Plus, you're telling these coaches what you're looking for. And obviously, with our technology we have, it is very in-depth on both sides that really gives these student athletes and the coaches just better ideas who they should be looking, who they should be tracking through the process.
How important these days are grades? I get different vibes depending on who I'm asking. Way back when we were kids, there was all, you ended up with guys in the NFL that couldn't even read. And I don't know how, if that's, I doubt that that's around too much anymore. I'm sure there's some people playing games, but how important are the grades and the SATs or the ACTs and those different measurements of academics success?
In regards to the grades, it always has been important, but I can tell you as the NCAA just continues to up the core GPA, now it's up to a 2.3 for Division I, the test scores. And think of it this way, and I try to relate to student athletes. They got to understand that, great, you could make the minimum GPA that the NCAA is asking for. You could have a 2.3 GPA. You could have a 900 on the SAT, and the NCAA says Division I schools can offer you a scholarship. Well, that's great, but you're not getting in Stanford. You're not getting in Northwestern.
Right.
So just because you make the minimum grades, and kids think, a lot of, excuse me, a lot of student athletes and families think, oh, well, if I make the NCAA minimums, I can be offered by any school. Well, technically you could be offered, but you're not going to get through the admissions office. So the higher that GPA is, the higher the test scores are, the more scholarship money that student athlete's going to be, coaches are going to be willing to invest in, and more coaches are going to be able to recruit them. So I basically tell a student athlete, have a 3.0 GPA or higher in the core, 1,000 or higher on the SAT, or a 21 or higher on the ACT, and that student athlete's going to open up about 85% of the schools that can actually get them accepted.
That's a good metric. Thanks, Coach. That's awesome. That's really awesome. So that's one criteria. What are some of, and that's the academic. Are there other criteria? And besides the athletic, is there character criteria? How does that get measured? The non-tangible kind of stuff.
Well, obviously, film is going to be very important. That's going to be an important part as putting a good highlight film together. And basically, the thing about a highlight film, and again, it's inexperienced. Student athletes don't understand what they They think they know what a highlight film should look like. Families, if you don't have specific training or knowledge, I see a lot of messed up highlight films of good players that should have something going on, but they just didn't put the film together to get that coach excited about them. So, that film, having your basically about 15 to 20 plays, no more than 25 on a highlight film, and then make sure those best plays are up front. Making sure, as you said, those intent. What else? Hey, if you're a skill guy, I wanted to see if you were running track. If you're a big guy and you were playing basketball, that made me more excited about you. Everything adds value to a student athlete. Hey, you're taking strong classes, or hey, you've won these certain awards, or you talk about camps and combines. Where have you been putting your time in? Have you been going to camp? If you're not doing anything over the summer to get better as a player, then I start questioning as a college coach, is this somebody we should recruit because they're just sitting on the couch, possibly eating chips in the summer? Are they going to get any better? But eventually,
let me stop you right there. So I know, like, as soon as football season ends, high school, it seems like there are 7-on-7 leagues, even, and tournaments, either through the high school or outside of the high school, almost a club kind of thing. It seems like, and then of course during the summer, there's. I know locally, it seems like most of the schools have a 7-on-7 meetup at least once a week or more. And then they also, a lot of them have, more often than not, they have weightlifting and whatnot. Is that what you're talking about, or are you saying, hey, there's a Nike camp that rolls through town, you should be at that?
Yeah, and here's the thing: as regards to camps, combines, those type of things, there's a difference. If there's a Nike, combine coming through, or Rivals, and that's something we actually we're partnering with both, but we'll actually be running the Rivals, NCSA with Adidas and them. But if you're going to a combine, about 2 at the most the student athlete should go to, and what that does is it's giving that college coach third-party verification information. Hey, I love high school coaches, but I know when I recruited, they told me a kid was 4'6", but then I started looking at film. I'm like, okay, this kid is not 4'6". If they can get third-party verification, like at a Rivals, a Nike, but they should only do about 2 of those a year. Again, that's just to get verified, combine times, that type of stuff. If they're going to a camp, are they going to a camp to get their skill better? If they are, great. If you start getting later in the recruiting process, you start going into your junior year, your senior year, these student athletes really should only be going to one-day prospect camps that they're getting invited by a college coach, to get that exposure. And that's one thing, Tim, is kids will go to camps and they'll say, well, I'm going to go to camp, I'm going to go to UCLA's camp to get exposure. Well, if they don't know who you are before you get there, that kid is a needle in the haystack. You got to make sure that, that program has seen your film, has seen your transcript. So if they're interested, they're going to actually target you at that camp. And a lot of these camps will have other college coaches there than just their staff. But that student athlete being proactive and letting them know, getting their information in front of them before they get there is really key to that process.
Let me ask you this. I went to the University of Pacific at the time, smallest school, Division I, first chartered university, I like to say, in the state of California. A lot of names have gone through there, and they dropped football in '95 when the NCAA did their thing with the BCS. Mm-hmm. And I went to a talk that the powers that be there gave, Ted Leland, who was the AD, I think, at the time, and the president of the school, and they talked about why they did it, which was based on some pretty sound financial realizations once the TV money evaporated. But the thing that was sobering was they said, I can't remember the dates, but they said in the state of California alone, I think it was 23. I might be off on my numbers. Don't hold me to it. But I remember him saying it was 23 schools that have dropped football in the state of California alone over, the years prior and since. So my question is are there less opportunities today for any for football, but any sport, or are there more?
Well, I mean, in regards to, obviously in the NCAA, right around when I was at Ohio State, I think we went from 115 scholarships to 95, and then eventually there in the, in the 90s, it got to 85, total scholarships. So in regards to scholarship opportunities, yeah, those have decreased, but I will tell you that has opened other opportunities at Division II, NAI, and Division III. So what you may have lost at the Division I level actually had, either stayed the same or increased, at the other division levels. Give you an example. Division III is that was the highest growing division, in college football. So I think they're up to 241 schools now, compared to whatever it's 120 in the 20s there for Division I. So the biggest thing I can tell you is 80%, Tim, of the scholarships that are offered outside of the Division I level. So wow. A student athlete has a greater chance of getting a scholarship outside of Division I than they actually do in Division I.
That's interesting, and I'm glad you shared that, because that's what I thought. I just didn't know the numbers. I didn't realize it was that high. That's amazing. And the division, strike me down for my arrogance as a kid, but I remember, and as a kid, you go, Division I is where it's at. And of course, as I said, nobody in the Pac-10, I think it was at the time, not Pac-12 like today, but Pac-10, they didn't want anything to do with me. I was too short, and there was a lot of guys like me. So we go to JC, and then I end up going to the smallest Division I there is. But we kind of look down our noses at Division II and III, whereas I gotta believe the level of play is amazing and probably better than ever in those divisions, aren't they, at this point?
Oh yeah, I mean it's definitely increased since I played. I had the opportunity to play at the Division III level, and I can tell you from the time I played, and then obviously I was on the championship committee for NCAA Division III, where I was an NCAA rep for those playoff games. And I can tell you that the talent level is definitely changed, and that's what you're seeing. You'll see more Division III guys making the NFL now too, because again, that stuff has trickled down, to those lower division levels. But I think the biggest thing when you start talking about going on and playing at the next level and having the opportunity, that's kind of our whole goal at NCSA is that. We know what the cost of education is today. It's outrageous. And if a student athlete can utilize their academic abilities, their athletic abilities, to help finance that degree, that's the and it's a great fit for them. At the end of the day, if that student athlete can walk away, with their degree in a zero balance, that's huge in today's today's world. So you're not walking out with $60,000, $70,000 in debt and have a $300 payment, when you first graduate for the next 10 years. And, that's why I said, our whole goal is at the end of the day to find the right fit for that student athlete. Everybody wants to play Division I. I did. Yeah, I wanted to play at Ohio State. But, athletically, I wasn't going to meet what they were looking for. But I still had a great time, great education. Got some of it paid for, and that's the ultimate goal.
Awesome. Hey, Coach, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I mean, in regards to, the biggest thing that I'd like to add in regards to recruiting and one of the things is make sure you try to get some help. It is very, it can be very daunting, and there's a lot of things that I hear all the time. Oh, well, hey, you can do this, or hey, you can't talk to a college coach till your senior year. There's just so many things that have changed the recruiting process. Make sure you're getting somebody that has a lot of good knowledge about the background of the process, when you should do stuff, when you should, when should you communicate with coaches, because I was just out at the U.S. Army All-American Bowl, and they had the 8th grade team All-American. They also had the 9th grade, and several of those guys already had offers. There was a kid out of, and I forget the quarterback out of Hawaii, that was on the 9th grade team that Michigan had already offered.
Wow.
So getting that process going and getting them educated, in the process early is really key. Just make sure that, it is a family affair. It can't be just a student athlete, and it can't just be the coach. Everybody's got to be involved in helping that student athlete, have success.
Well, and I think I said that a little earlier. My parents were absolutely clueless back in the day. Not their fault, but they were, and it left, as a kid, it left a lot of pressure on me to try to figure out how that went, and my coaches were somewhat helpful, but not, a lot. And so, but I think the parents today have somebody that can coach them. I mean, that would be you, right?
Yes. That's really, what NCSA, we have a big educational piece of NCSA. So we actually have over 500 former college coaches and collegiate athletes that actually are part of NCSA, and they've all been through it either as an athlete or they've been through it as a college coach. So they've got a lot of experience, a lot of background. A lot of them have made the mistakes. They know what not to do to make sure that student athlete and the family don't make the same mistakes and then wonder why didn't that happen? That's really how this network started. Our founder, Chris Krause, actually went on to play at Vanderbilt. He had some he had some buddies that he played with and didn't understand why they were just as good of players but weren't getting the same opportunity. It's just because they didn't get out in front of the right schools. They didn't know what to do. Families were, unsure of how to, get the process going. Like I said, that's something that we have a lot of experience in. And if any of your followers, any of your listeners need any help in that process, don't hesitate to post, my office number, my email, even my cell number. I'm pretty accessible. I try to help out in any way I can. This is, like I said at the beginning, I love to do this, and anything I can do to help a family or a student athlete achieve their goals in that process, I want to definitely be able to try to do that.
And I definitely want you to give me all that in a minute, but before I ask you for that information, and we will post it also on text, at what point, you talked about, the process, at what point does the process start? As I'm a parent, and I have a kid who definitely has the desire, who has the talent, has the want. When do I start?
Well, definitely as early as 8th and 9th grade. And here's why. And obviously I told you, I dealt with some players out at the U.S. Army All-American Bowl that are 8th and 9th graders that did have offers. That's not the reason you start the process. The reason you start that early is starting to get educated so you are preparing yourself. You're knowing everything you should do to make sure they're hitting every mark so they don't miss an opportunity. So like I'm dealing with 2018s right now that haven't even reached out to a Division I coach. They're talent-wise, they look Division I, the opportunities are probably Division I, and they haven't even email, text, or direct message a Division I coach, and they've been able to do that since this past September, last year. Well, we can't get those 6 months back. So the sooner you get started, the more that student athlete can get educated on what they need to do, and the sooner they get their name out there, they just put themselves in a better position to be more successful in the process.
Very cool. So what is your website?
Our website is ncsasports.org.
Okay, and when I go there, I can look at it, but I could also begin as a parent or an athlete or both to create a profile, correct?
Yes, you actually can go in and start create a profile and get that started. And then what that'll do is that'll trigger one of our recruiting coordinators to be able to reach out to that family. And they'll actually gather some information, Tim, to see if that student athlete is somebody that a college coach or a person like myself would want to evaluate. If they feel that, then they'll actually try to set an appointment with someone like myself. And basically it's about a 45-minute evaluation, and I'm trying to find out, are you somebody that a college coach down the road would want to recruit academically, athletically, the same thing I did, when I was a college coach and I interviewed, students and families, what's that commitment level? And if that happens, then we'll activate that profile so it becomes searchable to those college coaches then.
Okay. That's awesome. Now you have I think I found you originally on Twitter. You have Twitter and Facebook. What are those?
Yes. I'm not always good at knowing what my stuff is, but it's Coach Mike Dunlevy. And for my Facebook, and I actually forget what my Twitter is. You don't look at it too much. I always use it, but I never get a chance to know what it is. But I can get that to you.
Okay, I'll post it up. I was on it earlier. The one last thing I wanted to ask you was, within all that, once they sign up, they have access to ongoing educational opportunities, web-based, correct?
Yeah, so we actually have some web-based education. There's also like a resource library in there. They actually, Tim, can go in and search colleges. So they can go in, actually search colleges across the country that have their major, that are playing college football or their sport. And then they can actually go in and, research that school more. They can tell that school if they're interested in them. And then one of the things that we do, and about 45% of the families will take advantage of this, we actually have memberships where we can help that family, if need be, for other resources, like maybe they're unsure about a highlight film. So we're able to go into their Huddle account, put a highlight film together for them. Match levels. We actually can tell them how they match a school because the coaches come in the back end and tell us what they're looking for. And then we can say, hey, Northwestern's looking for a 6'2" or taller quarterback, all that. And then we can help that student athlete know that, hey, these are the schools you're going to target. We have Princeton Review for ACT, SAT, pretty much everything that would set up that family, to make sure they're hitting everything and they're doing the best. We can do that. And about 45% of the families take advantage of that opportunity over and above that activated profile.
It's fascinating. Man, it really has changed, hasn't it?
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Well, Coach, I really, really appreciate your time. This has been illuminating for me. Hopefully it's been for the parents and even kids that might listen to it down the road. I appreciate it, and keep on doing what you're doing, man. It's good stuff.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate the time.
Awesome. Hold on one second. We'll talk after I turn this off. Hold on.